No surprise to people that have been following what we've been doing, but the state is in really good fiscal shape. And that's not true for most states around this country. You see states, California, they just said they had $31 billion shortfall. Now they just said it's probably going to be another 20 on top of that. You see Illinois, New York, you see all these fiscal problems. Here in Florida, we're doing it right. Our credit rating is AAA. We have a higher credit rating than the U.S. government does, and that's something that we're proud of. We've had an approach that has been fiscally responsible. If you look at the state of Florida compared to New York State, we have millions of more people. Their budget is twice the size of our budget, and yet when people come from there to here, they will say that we have better services, better roads, and of course our schools are performing higher there. So where is all that money going? I don't know, but we're doing what we need to do in a very fiscally responsible way. We've cut taxes every year since I've been governor and have had record tax reductions, and yet still managed to run big budget surpluses. And we have, since I've become governor, paid off 25% of our state's total debt that it's accumulated for all of its history. And that's something you don't see many other states doing. And you certainly don't see Washington doing that, I can tell you that. We're also the #1 state for economy, according to CNBC. We rank #1 in education freedom, newly ranked #1 for talent development, #1 public higher education system, #1 for net migration every year since I've been governor, #1 fastest growing state. First time Florida's been the nation's fastest growing state since the 1950s. #1 for new business formations, and that's been true every year since I've been governor. We have the best GDP growth amongst all large states. We have the lowest unemployment amongst all large states. In fact, Florida, California, we're at 2.8%. California's at 4.8%, so 60% higher unemployment in California than in Florida. We've recently also been ranked #1 for entrepreneurship, which is very good. And then U.S. News and World Report, we're ranked #1 overall for education, which was not always the case in the state of Florida. Adding all that, quality of life, our crime rate is at a 50-year low in the state of Florida. That's certainly not true in a lot of these other states and what they're doing. So we have done it right. So we've done it right, and we're going to continue to do it right with this upcoming fiscal year budget. Now, the budget that we're going to be submitting to the legislature is a top line of $114.4 billion. That is actually less than our current fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, and yet, even with an overall reduction in spending, as you'll see, we're going to be making key investments in things that really matter, like education and infrastructure and transportation. With our budget, we will have a surplus reserve amount that is $16.3 billion. Now, typically when we do these announcements, we say here's what we anticipate it being, but what's happened is the last 3 years it always ends up being more, because what happens is the economy here does better than in other parts of the country, so you end up bringing in more revenue even though you're reducing taxes because you're broadening your economic base. So I would anticipate that we likely will end up with more in reserve at the end of this. For example, this current fiscal year, we're now into December, so we have the numbers July through November. Every single month, we brought in more revenue than was forecasted to be brought in. And so these budgets, the numbers are forecasted, and we typically will beat that. We're also going to pledge another $455 million to something we started this fiscal year. It's an accelerated debt repayment program. So our debt is now about $15 billion. So our economy in Florida is $1 trillion, $1.2 trillion GDP, and the state debt is only $15 or $16 billion. That is a minuscule amount in terms of debt to GDP ratio. Compare the federal government, the debt is 33 trillion. The U.S. economy is only like 26 trillion. So the debt is bigger than the U.S. economy. We are about 1% of our debt compared to the Florida economy, and maybe not even that much, depending on how you calculate it. So we're going to continue to be aggressive in repaying debt. We're also going to be reducing the size of government by eliminating over 1,000 positions throughout the state government, and that's going to help us realign resources to focus on efficiency. We will continue to provide big tax relief. So this budget provides more than $1.1 billion in tax relief, including a new tax relief initiative, $431 million to reduce the cost of homeowners insurance. And so that'll go up to housing values of $750,000. 6 sales tax holidays, which will save taxpayers more than $475 million, including 2 back-to-school sales tax holidays, disaster preparedness tax holiday, the 3-month Freedom Summer tax holiday, which we started a couple years ago, and that is outdoor recreation items, events, tickets, all kinds of stuff, so that Florida families can enjoy the summer. A 7-day tool tax holiday, so that people who either work for a living with tools or just you have it at your house and you're doing it yourself, you'll be able to get those tools tax-free for that week. We're also going to continue with $170 million in small business tax cuts, and we are going to make permanent something that we did this year on a temporary basis. So after this next legislative session, the over-the-counter pet medications will permanently be tax-free in the state of Florida. And we did this right now. The over-the-counter has a tax holiday for this fiscal year. The pet food has a tax holiday for this fiscal year. We made permanent this year all the tax relief on baby items. So none of the items that people need for babies, diapers, wipes, cribs, strollers, clothes, none of that is taxed in Florida anymore. So that saves families a lot of money. I can tell you, having we now have a first grader, kindergartner, and a preschooler. The child baby tax holiday we didn't start until basically our youngest was out of diapers, and so my wife just did a mental calculation of how much we would have saved had I done that our first year as governor. But we didn't have bite inflation then, and so people were able to make ends meet a little bit better. So this is going to be very robust tax. I don't think there've ever been, before I was governor, $1 billion or more in tax relief in a given year. We did way more than that this year, and of course we're going to do $1.1 billion going forward. Now we're reducing the top line of the budget. We're paying off debt. We're cutting taxes, and yet, because we're managing this stuff prudently, we are still able to do a lot with terms of funding for education. So we're proud of where the direction we've gone in education. Over the past 5 years, Florida K-12 is ranked number 3 in student achievement and number 1 in closing achievement gaps, according to the nation's report card for 2022. And in that NAEP exam, which is the only exam every state proctors to its students, Florida finished 3rd and 4th respectively in 4th grade reading and 4th grade math, and that we were not there 25 years ago. We also have more school choice in Florida than anywhere else in the United States, and we've had a lot of people that have helped do that. My colleagues in the legislature, of course, Speaker Renner and Senate President Kathleen Passidomo have helped expand that since I've been governor. And you look right here, we're at a charter school. The thing about, I tell people when people ask me about Florida education, say parents have the ability to make a lot of different choices. You can, of course, just go to your neighborhood school that's in the school district. Most school districts now offer choice programs, and so you can go to different parts of your county, most likely. You also can choose a charter school like we are here, which is public, but it's not controlled by the school district. And then you have private scholarships where you can go to private school. And the thing about a school like this here is they're not entitled to get any students. They have to earn the students. They have to convince parents that this is a good place for their kids to go. So we've created an environment where schools have an incentive to continue to do better. And that's why I think you've seen not only our achievement results be good, but within our school districts you've seen improvements, as well as our charter and private school folks. Now, we've also continued to do record investments in school safety and mental health. I took the reins of that when I came in 2019, and we've done more for school safety than any state in the country, implementing the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas recommendations and also doing even more. We have also done record salary increases for teachers in the state of Florida. We've done billions of dollars of increase for teacher salaries, including at charter schools like we are here. So that's a good backdrop. So even though we're cutting taxes, even though we're able to reduce overall spending and pay down debt, we are still able to do a historic $27.8 billion in funding for the K through 12 public school system. That's the highest amount of funding ever. That includes per pupil investment at $88,442 per student. That's $175 more than last year, and that's the highest that we've had on record. And while we're happy to do that, we understand that that doesn't necessarily translate into academic success. There's states that spend way more and have terrible results, and so we're always focused on the results, but we understand that this is important for a lot of schools. Our budget will provide for close to 300,000 scholarships for K-12 students, and that's a huge, huge deal, and there's no one else in the country that is able to match that. We want to make sure that we're going to continue for school safety, so we have overall money for that, but we're also going to continue to provide resources for Jewish day schools, which unfortunately in this day and age can be targeted, and we've done a lot to make sure that doesn't happen in Florida, but you see what's going around in the country right now. It's really, really sad to see some of the outpouring of hate regarding our Jewish community. Budget also provides another $10 million for the newly created nonprofit security grant program. So this allows houses of worship, schools, and community centers with resources to help with security and to help with safety. We are continuing our mission to raise teacher salaries. So this budget includes $1.25 billion that has to go to teacher salary increases. It's a categorical in the budget. We don't want it spent on bureaucracy or red tape. We want it to go to teachers, and so that's a $200 million increase over the current year budget. We're also going to do $1.6 billion for early childhood education, including $450 million for voluntary pre-K programs, and we are going to continue to set aside $10 million to recruit veterans and first responders to join the teaching profession here in the state of Florida. And that's something that I think is going to be meaningful to a lot of students to be able to have teachers with that type of experience. We're also doing $4 million for our teacher apprenticeship program. You can sit there and go to school, and that's fine, and I know you need to do that, but the way you learn is really to be doing it, and this apprenticeship program gives would-be teachers the ability to be able to do that. We've also been proud to take the lead on ensuring robust American civics education throughout the state of Florida. We have more standards in high school. We have a test that students take before they graduate that's modeled after the citizenship exam. We also created a program called the Florida Civic Seal of Excellence, which gives $3,000 bonuses to every teacher that goes through this civics training program. And this is a program that we got people from Hillsdale College and Heritage Foundation, all these people to come to provide a course that talks about the foundations of this republic. How did it come to be? What are the intellectual currents that led to the American Revolution, the Constitution, and things that have animated us throughout history? It's been a phenomenal program. It's already done 11,000 teachers have gone through it. And the thing is, you don't even need to be a civics teacher, because these are ideas and principles that are important for almost anything that you're doing. So we encourage all teachers to do it. So we are going to do another $52 million for all of our civics programs, including the teacher bonuses, including our speech and debate initiative, And we're going to continue to stress the importance that when we graduate students from our school system here, we don't want them to be blank slates. We want them to understand what it means to be an American citizen. We're going to continue to support the state's top-ranked public university and state college system. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we had one of our schools, Florida State, go undefeated this year and win the conference championship. And they earned a spot in the college football playoffs. And they were excluded from that, and I think was something that is very, very controversial. Now, I don't know what all goes into that decision making. I know a lot of people have been disappointed. I know the school and the Board of Governors are looking to see, is there anything that can be done. I don't think there would be anything where they could get relief prior to the tournament, obviously, but in terms of going forward, and I don't know if there is. But what we decided to do, we're setting aside $1 million for any litigation expenses that may become as a result of this really, really poor decision by the college football playoffs to exclude an undefeated team who won a big Power 5 conference championship. And look, I'm as governor, I didn't go to any of the Florida universities, and so I've said from the beginning, I just want us to get back to where Miami, Florida, and Florida State were always competing for the national championship. I want more of our blue chip high school recruits to stay in state and all that. And that's kind of been what I've done. But the fact that we live now in Tallahassee and in the governor's residence, my first grader, my fifth grader, and my preschooler, what they know is Tallahassee. And so they are all Noles, and they are big-time fans. And they do the tomahawk chop, and they were not happy on Sunday when Florida State was left out on that college football special selection show. So it's unfortunate that we have to even do that, but we are going to put aside $1 million and let the chips fall where they may on that. I know now they're going to go forward. It's going to be a larger playoff, which I think maybe is probably too many teams, because there's a happy medium between having a playoff, which I think we should, to where the regular season doesn't mean as much anymore. I mean, to me, it's like if you win and you're undefeated, that should mean something. I mean, that should really be significant. And they're telling us that it doesn't, that other factors matter more. So that's just not how I would approach it. Nevertheless, we are going to continue to ensure that our higher education, and you know what, and I got to thank Florida State, because I used to kind of joke with trustees, some of the college presidents in the past, because Florida, the state of Florida would be able to say we've done so well in higher education. I mean, Florida State is ranked in the top 15 public universities, University of Florida, number 5. Wall Street Journal even ranked University of Florida #1 public in the country. So you have all this stuff, and it's good, and there's a lot of excitement about that. And all I would say is, I like those academic rankings. I just want the football rankings to match that. Florida State delivered on that. I mean, they did everything that we could have asked for them to do, and I think that they're going to continue to do well as a program. And that makes it exciting when these teams are doing well. It really makes it fun to be in Florida during the fall football season. Now, we are going to do, for the whole university system, we're going to continue to support, but we're supporting in ways that make sense. We are going to fund, of course, the Bright Futures Scholarship Program, and so that's a $603 million investment. And in Florida, Bright Futures, you basically go to school for either free or very, very reduced, depending on the level of scholarship you get, and that's depending on your performance as a student in high school. But to be able to go and have virtually no debt and get a degree from a prestigious university, you don't have that option very many places in the United States. You do have it here, and part of the reason you have it here is not just the Bright Futures, but it's the fact that we have not allowed them to raise tuition since I've been governor. So the tuition's the same today as it has been in years past. We're going to continue to hold the line on tuition. What I've found is when universities raise tuition, they just use it to increase administrative bloat and bureaucracy and red tape. It doesn't actually increase the value of the education, and in fact, a lot of that never sees the inside of a classroom. So we're holding the line on tuition. We also eliminated DE&I from our public universities, so that's a bureaucracy that can wither and go away. That'll save money, and it'll save a lot of positions as well. And that's the thing. When you look at the rising tuition around the country, a lot of that is being used to fund this DE&I, which is very discriminatory, very divisive, and that's part of the reason you see some of the nonsense you're seeing on college campuses with Hamas sympathizers, because people are programmed to think in ways where it's really divisive rather than treating people as individuals and judging them based on merit, which is what we do in the state of Florida. And so we're not going to do what they do in those other places. So we're doing that. It's affordable, it's high quality, and that's what we want to be able to do. So we're funding the college system, the university system. We have $150 million for faculty recruitment and retention at our state colleges and universities. So, I have everyone's been complaining for years about college professors and trying to indoctrinate and all this other stuff. And for our sake, for Florida, that's not what we want with your tax dollars. I mean, we want academic rigor. We want the pursuit of truth. So we created a review process for tenured professors. They undergo review every 5 years and can be let go for poor performance. So that's how we have it in Florida now. So, and you're seeing there's been gnashing of teeth about this in the media and stuff. Oh, some of these professors are leaving, this or that. But just understand, if you have Marxist professors leaving, that is a gain for the state of Florida. That's not a negative. I mean, we want to make sure we're doing well. But we also understand that we do want high quality folks, and we want to be able to compete for folks that really believe in the academic process and doing it the way higher education was originally envisioned. So we have $150 million set aside to recruit new faculty and to retain good faculty at our colleges and universities. And I think that's really, really important. And so nobody is really everyone complains about the rot in higher education. You see it when the Hamas attacked Israel. You have these protests. I know, look, I joke around, this is true, especially, as a Republican. I'm one of the few people in this country that got through both Harvard and Yale and came out more conservative than when I went in. That's not easy to do. But even thinking back in my days, it was definitely very left. But I don't think back then that if there was a terrorist attack that you would have seen students and faculty going out to celebrate that. I don't think you would have. I think we've really lost our way even more. And when that attack happened, to see these demonstrators cheering Hamas, that was really chilling. It shows you there's a sickness in some of these institutions. MIT was saying, well, look, a lot of these are foreign students on visas. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cancel their visa and I'll send them home. I don't want them coming here. We should be putting Americans in those slots. So you see that, and it's like, okay, well, we are remooring higher education back to its traditional mission. We're supposed to be preparing these students to be citizens of this republic. We're supposed to teach critical thinking. We're supposed to teach the pursuit of truth. We're supposed to uphold high academic standards and promote rigor. That's where we're going, and we're putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to that. We're also understand that, yes, we're proud of our university system, but a degree from a four-year brick and ivy university is not the only way you can be successful. And for many young people, it's not the best way for you to be successful. So we set a goal, my first year as governor, to go from the bottom half of states to #1 in workforce education by the year 2030. We are following through on that promise by having invested more than $8 billion in workforce education. We want students to be able to acquire skills that can go into the trades that are in high demand. You look, when I became governor, we were doing about 600 truck drivers a year. Now we're doing 3,500 commercial driver's licenses a year. These are folks that are making six figures. There's a demand for this. Welding, electrical, aviation mechanics, you name it, we're creating where students can get certified when they graduate from high school. That is a huge, huge thing, and they have opportunities to do very, very well with no debt. And the thing about it is, when people act like a piece of paper, a degree, is the end-all, be-all, that has led to a generation of students that have gone deep into debt. They end up in degrees with some of these peripheral subjects like zombie studies, and then they end up in jobs they could have out of high school anyways, while having all this debt burden. So we don't want that. Obviously, we want higher education to be affordable. It is in Florida for our Florida residents. And oh, by the way, grandparents, you can qualify your kids for in-state tuition as a grandparent in the state of Florida. So you have, you're down here in Southwest Florida, you got grandkids in Wisconsin or Iowa or Michigan. They can get in-state tuition based on their grandparents' residence. We're proud of that, and that gives them an ability to have cheap. So we want to do that. But we also know there's just been way too much debt. There's been way too many false promises that have been made. This workforce education provides great opportunities, great upside. So we have close to $900 million in this budget to support workforce programs, including our CTE program statewide, $200 million to create new CTE subjects and programs, and $20 million to expand apprenticeship programs for high school and college students under our Pathways for Career Opportunities grant program. So we've doubled the number of apprenticeships that we're doing in the state of Florida just in the last few years, and that's the type of thing that the best way to learn is to do. And so we're working with businesses, we're working with other folks to be able to slot in these students to be able to acquire the skills right there in action, right there on the job. So we're going to continue doing that. I think that's a great way to move forward as a country. We're also understand that some of the things that we've seen on college campuses with respect to anti-Semitism is unacceptable. We have done a lot in Florida to ensure, and we're fighting now with the Students for Justice for Palestine, which we're delisting because they're common cause with Hamas, and I don't have time for that. We're not going to deal with that. So we're fighting that and all this stuff, but we also understand that there's other things we need to do. So we're doing $1.35 million for Florida Holocaust Museum and full funding for the Florida Holocaust Task Force and the Holocaust Memorial in Miami Beach. We want these students, and we want everybody, but particularly some of these ignorant college students, to understand why we say never again. Now, our economy is stronger than just about any states in the country. We're proud of that. We have had significant in-migration into the state of Florida. I think it's been close to 500,000 on net over the last several years. That's number one in the country by far. Of course, you see the places people are leaving, like California and Illinois and New York. They all have similar governing philosophies, and people really are fleeing the poor results of those policies, and they're coming to Florida because they like the way we've done business here. But, and that's great, and I'm not even asking for people to come. I mean, you'll have some governors that are just like begging anyone to come to their state. Like, I have not done that. I think my first year as governor, I did some trips for some business development, and then since then, it's like a lot of them just call us just saying, hey, we're coming to Florida, we just want to let you know all this stuff. And so that's just the way it's been. I mean, it's been where we've had a lot of people that have really wanted to come here. So we understand that, and I'm not even asking for migration, but it's a free country, people vote with their feet. So that means we have responsibilities in terms of things like transportation and infrastructure to make sure that people can get around in ways that work. So we are including $14.5 billion for our state transportation work program. That is a robust budget. $630 million will be for phase 2 of our Moving Florida Forward initiative. That'll expedite another 20 projects to relieve traffic congestion. So last year we had to make a decision. Our surplus reached like $22 billion. And, you don't want to run deficits, obviously, but you also don't want to run too big a surplus, because that means that this isn't being allocated properly. So we did the big tax relief, of course, but we also set aside $4 billion of that surplus to accelerate a lot of these transportation programs. So there's going to end up being projects that would have taken 20 years that'll be done in 5 or 6. And that's going to make a big difference as the state's growing, because even though we're laying pavement, even though we're fixing things, it's very tough to keep up with the pace. And so by moving that money forward, that allows us to try to get ahead of this. So we're going to continue to do that with this budget going forward. And I think it is going to make a difference. There are some spots in Southwest Florida, but I'll tell you, there's some spots in like Central Florida where you just get stuck. So we're going to work to get that and alleviate that traffic. It's very, very important. We're also going to do things like $100 million for the Job Growth Grant Fund. So that's a fund that I have as governor that I can use for workforce, I can use for infrastructure, and I can use for economic development. So, for example, we recently just did about $20 million to help facilitate the production of more semiconductors in the state of Florida. And it's been something that we've been supportive of because it has geopolitical implications. It has a lot of implications to be able to do. When I was debating Newsom, he tried to say that that was Biden that did it. I'm like, what are you talking about? That came from the Job Growth Grant Fund. And there was even a media, of course, not getting it right, that was trying to say that this is somehow money from Biden. It is not money from Biden. It is money from the State Job Growth Grant Fund. We saw that as being something that was beneficial, so we put resources there. We've also done things to create more infrastructure, training programs, you name it, but that's been money well spent. We're going to continue to fund Visit Florida with $105 million, $175 million for the Small Business Credit Initiative, $25 million for the Rural Infrastructure Fund, $100 million to expand broadband internet access, $88 million for Small County Outreach Program, and fully funds workforce housing initiatives with $400 million to continue to support the Live Local Act, which was Kathleen Passidomo's signature legislation in this year's legislative session. And honestly, it's working. Sometimes when things are done, you can look at data, and that's important, and it's not necessarily something that can be substituted, but it's also just like when I'm in different parts of the state and I keep hearing that Live Local, these people like, hey, we're going to be building more housing, then you know that it's having its intended purpose. And ultimately, part of the housing rents and all that is just the inflation, which has just been bad for everybody, but part of it is you need more supply. You need more supply in areas where people that are cops and teachers and nurses are able to work in the community, or able to live in the communities that they work. So she did that, I think, in a way that's been very, very successful. So we're going to continue to do that. Environment. We've done huge for environment since I've been governor. Everything I promised I would do, I've delivered, and we over-delivered on the promises for water quality, Everglades restoration. We're going to have these reservoirs completed. We're going to continue to have more water flowing south through the Everglades to Florida Bay as God intended. And we're really showing that you can take a massive, massive restoration project of a huge magnitude and actually get it done. And it had been languishing for many, many years, and we came and we got it done. So we are going to continue to do this. There's more than $1 billion in this budget for those types of projects to send water south, protect our springs, protect our waterways. We also we've seen with some of these storms the toll it can take on coastlines in Florida. So we're doing $157 million to support the resiliency of our coastline, and $50 million for beach renourishment. When Ian came through Southwest Florida, there was obviously understandable focus on this part of the state, but it went through the entire state and left in the Atlantic Ocean off the east coast of Florida in like Daytona Beach. You go to Volusia County, and it had probably gone 100, 200 miles over Florida, they had massive dunes wiped out. They had serious problems with their coastline for a storm that had gone all the way across Florida. So this is a big deal all around the state of Florida. We're also going to provide $175 million to protect Florida's prized properties and $100 million for the Rural and Family Lands Program to protect important agriculture lands. That includes $20 million for citrus research and to support the Florida citrus industry. Law and order. This budget continues our commitment to ensuring that we are not only just a law and order state, but a great place to be in law enforcement. And we're doing that by continuing our program to offer $5,000 signing bonuses for recruits coming into the state of Florida in either our police, sheriff's departments, or in our state agencies. And we've gotten a lot of press on people leaving from Chicago and New York to come to Florida. And I can tell you, I've not met one of these guys that have wanted to go back. I mean, once they come here, they like it. It's a good quality of life, but they're appreciated by Floridians because we support the people that wear the uniform. I was in California recently, and I ran into one of the police chiefs there in a pretty nice area, and I was like, "How you doing, man?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm doing good. All my police officers want to move to Florida now." And so, we've created, I think, an environment where we're attracting a lot of good people. But that $5,000 bonus is not just for out-of-state coming in. It's also for new recruits. So you could be a Florida resident, you could be going to school. If you decide this is what you want to do, if you're new to law enforcement, we want to use that $5,000 bonus as an enticement for you to choose this as a career. And that's our way of telling young people that serving in law enforcement's a noble cause, that it's an important part of our community, and that you can't have a successful state without having the rule of law prevail. So we're doing $20 million for those bonuses. And we may do, and we've done the bonuses. We've also done 3 years in a row. We've done additional bonuses for law enforcement. So we've done a lot. We put our money where our mouth is on all of this stuff, and I think that that's been something that's been really, really good. Emergency management, we're going to continue to support those efforts, including here in Southwest Florida. We still have open disaster declarations, and we're still continuing to process stuff. Some of these things are really long-term. I mean, there'll be money coming into this area for many years coming into the future, and we'll make sure that we're good stewards of that. We're also going to do another $107 million in recurring funds for the My Safe Florida Home Grant Program. So what that does is that assists Florida homeowners with free inspections as well as home hardening projects. And so if you get a grant and you make an improvement, you harden your home, you're entitled to a reduction in your insurance premiums. And so we've had a lot of people that have used that. It's been very popular. It actually ran out. We funded it in this year's budget, and it basically ran out. So in the special session that we did in November, where we did the Iran sanctions and we did some of the school choice, we did $181 million for that. And so then I'm going to do $107 million on top of that. For that. So we encourage Floridians to take advantage of that. I think that that's something that's been a popular and worthwhile initiative. Military support. We have here not just the Florida National Guard, we've created or resuscitated the Florida State Guard. And part of the reason that we did that is we wanted to have an ability to have people serving the state without any strings attached from the federal government. And part of the reason we first thought about this was when the federal government, through the Department of Defense, imposed COVID mRNA vax mandates on service members. Now, we said in the Florida National Guard we are not going to impose that mandate. However, if the military really wanted to call us on it, we understood they probably would win that battle in court. So we said, you know what? We need to have our own anyways. Why would we want to be encumbered by Washington? You know, Washington sends our guys around the world, uses National Guard. We want to be able to have full operational and administrative control over our own state guard. So we did that. Fortunately, we won on the COVID vax stuff, so none of our guardsmen, National Guardsmen, lost their jobs. But we think that this is something worthwhile. So we had the Florida State Guard responded for the first time in 75 years. with Hurricane Idalia. We're doing another $57 million to help equip, train, and recruit new members. And we're also going to continue to help with our National Guard, providing $350 million for National Guard training facilities, as well as to support National Guardmen seeking higher education degrees. And we are going to do a $1,000 recruitment bonus there as well. So we've been able to do an awful lot with respect to both the National Guard and our State Guard. And you guys have seen it in Southwest Florida. It's important when disaster strikes. These are some of the guys that are going to be there helping out in a variety of ways, and they did a really good job after Ian, and they did a great job after Idalia. We are going to do for health, we're going to make sure that we're doing things to help veterans as well. $8.9 million to support improvements in equipment for the state veterans nursing homes, and then we are going to begin building the 9th state veterans nursing home, which has been something that's been very, very important to a lot of our elderly veterans. We are also going to support seniors by doing a $15 million for increasing services through the Community Care for the Elderly program and the Home Care for the Elderly program, as well as $6 million to expand the number of seniors served through our Alzheimer's disease initiative. And we've also looked at people with unique abilities, $127.4 million to provide necessary services so that they can help reach their full God-given potential. When you look at what's happening with the Biden border crisis, we have massive amounts of fentanyl that are coming across that border. That is impacting every community in this country. You know, we've done a lot to combat illegal immigration in Florida, and incidentally, we did legislation this year that really was strong and the strongest in the country, and we've seen the impact. When I first sent people to help Texas in the border in 2021, our guys would report that a lot of the people coming through the border, Florida was their intended destination, 30 to 40%. Now the reports are very few are saying Florida, because they know we're taking the problem seriously, and they know they can go to a sanctuary jurisdiction rather than go to Florida where we're going to enforce the laws. So those policies have worked for sure. But the drugs are going everywhere. And people say, oh, well, you're not a border state. Every community is a border community now because of what's happened with the fentanyl. So we have $295 million for behavioral health services to enhance mobile response services, support for crisis diversion services and mental health treatment facilities. We're also doing $153 million from our national opioid settlement money to support our opioid recovery office, which is very, very important, and $31.8 million for our coordinated opioid recovery network, our CORE network. This is intervention to help people who are addicted to opioids, and we've had success. We were the only state in the country that had a year-over-year decline in overdose deaths. That's very difficult to achieve, and I think it's a result of this program. The relapse rate is very small with people that actually go through our CORE network, and we're going to continue to be able to do that. We're doing $103 million for child welfare system, $9.8 million for adoption incentives for those who choose to adopt children from our child welfare system. We're going to provide $447 million to support the care for pregnant women and children, improving access to medical care, and support care for seriously ill children and babies. And then also with cancer being something that's near and dear to our family's heart, as Casey having dealt with breast cancer research, something we've been very supportive of. We're doing $232 million for cancer research, $60 million for the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund, $40 million increase over last year. That supports groundbreaking research throughout the state, and $127.5 million for the DeSantis Cancer Research Program to enhance the quality and competitiveness of cancer care. So this is a budget that is, I think, respecting the taxpayers of this state. We are living within our means. We are even paring back expenses. We're reducing the size of government. We're cutting taxes. We're eliminating more of our state debt. Yet, we also have record investment for education, record support for transportation and infrastructure, record support for environmental restoration and water quality. That is how you govern well. You need to know that your money is being used in ways that are benefiting the people of this state In the state of Florida, you're not going to see us be in a situation where we're spending twice as much of a state with more population than us and producing bad outcomes like you've seen in New York. No. We're proud that our budget's half their budget, and yet we're able to deliver for the people in a really, really big way. So I think people in Florida can have a lot of satisfaction to know that the state is strong. Our fiscal situation has never been better, and we're going to continue showing the rest of the country how it's done. So thank you all. Well, maybe. I don't know that that would be my. I don't think that would be my wheelhouse on that. But I mean, look, I think 2018. Okay, I'm running for governor. They had polls saying I was going to lose the primary by 20%. I won by 20%. Their CNN, I remember 2 weeks before the election, we did a debate on CNN, and they had me losing by like 15 points. Of course, we won the race. My most recent election, people, they did have to acknowledge I was going to win, but a lot of these polls, a month before the election had me winning 2 or 3 points, and we won by 20. Going into 2022, I'm watching Fox News. They're all saying it's going to be a red wave. They're showing all these polls, red wave, red wave. There was no red. There was a red wave in Florida. There was not a red wave anywhere else, and it was a total crash and burn. So I think these things clearly haven't done a good track record. I think they're used to try to create narratives and try to create, ideas that, oh, well, this person's going to win, this person's going to not. And I think most Republicans know the game that's being played, and I don't think that they want to have this stuff shoved down their throat constantly. I can tell you that, the best record to look at is actual election performance if you want to see who would do well. And in Florida, we won places that Republicans have never won in our lifetime. We won places like Palm Beach County. We won Miami-Dade by double digits. We were winning up and down the state because people respond to leadership. And the polls may not have said that that was going to be the result, but the actual voters produced that result, and that's really what you need to do. So I think I take all of it with a grain of salt. I've always done that. But I will say in the midterm elections, they were predicting a big red wave. That didn't happen. We delivered it in Florida, and we way overperformed what the polls were saying. It just shows you that, these things, to do them well, is very expensive, and you wonder how are people just putting these things out. They're either doing a really bad job or somebody's paying for those results. I mean, one or the other. Yes. No, I mean, we just did a debate with the governor of California. We got 5.4 million viewers just on the day. They've been doing it since then, and that was 90 minutes to be able to do what I typically do in Florida, and that's beat the left, and we beat him up and down on all these issues, and I've proven to do that. And I'm really the only one that's running of any candidate that has actually beat these people. And we've done that across every subject in Florida. And that's what it's going to take to turn around the country. I mean, to have campaign slogans, to say this and that, and then not produce results or not win the election, that's not going to do the trick. So we have a responsibility to do that. So I'm going to go. I mean, I think there's going to be 4 of us up there. Why Donald Trump refuses to debate is just beyond me. I mean, if you're doing so well, you should want to go up there and make your case. And I think voters deserve to hear from candidates as to why they should be the nominee, especially a candidate that's had 2 opportunities already. So, you know, I'm hoping he actually blamed me yesterday for Florida State not making the playoff. He's also blamed, he's attacked me as saying that New York and Cuomo did better and handled COVID better than Florida. He said he's attacked me for being pro-life. He sided with Disney when we work to protect kids from sexualized curriculum. And so this is what he does. Now he's doing it behind his keyboard on his social media site, which a lot of people aren't seeing what's happening, and the media is not really amplifying, but he's definitely been doing that. So, okay, if you're gonna be a keyboard warrior, get out of your dungeon, get off the keyboard, stand on the debate stage, and let's go. Let's go do it. I don't think he will do it because I don't think he can stand there for 2 hours against me and come out on top. I think they know that. And I think that's why they're not doing it. So yeah, I'll be there. It'll be fun. But if you're not willing to debate, you know, that just speaks volumes about your record and about not wanting to answer questions. I mean, think about it. You know, we fought Fauci and his administration on COVID. We would not have been open if I had listened to them. They attacked me for opening schools. They told me to close restaurants in the fall of 2020, all this stuff. And he's never had to answer for why he didn't fire Fauci and why he gave Fauci an award his last day in office. I mean, really? You're giving this guy an award the last day in office? Why would you do that? Well, he doesn't want to answer that question or a lot of the other questions. You know, now he's bragging about being supported by BLM. And I'm thinking like, and he's putting that out there. A lot of people aren't amplifying it, but he's doing it. And I'm thinking to myself, they burnt down cities in this country. You know, people died as a result of that. They did billions of dollars in damage. That's not an endorsement I would want to have from any of those people. And, of course, that happened on his watch. It didn't happen in Florida because we didn't let it happen in Florida. We called out the National Guard and said, you riot at your own peril. We are going to hold you accountable. And that's what you have to do as the executive. You can't let cities burn down. So I think you owe it to the people to debate. Yes. Yeah, that is not true. They are not experiencing the similar threats. I mean, I don't see how you can look at what's going on. Are those students being chased for their lives in some of these universities around the country? Do you look at what? I mean, they had the pro-Israel rally on Washington, D.C. I didn't see any hate there. I saw American flags. I saw Israel flags. I saw that. I think that's a totally false equivalence. And that's what Biden has done. Biden has responded to the unprecedented spike in anti-Semitic fervor around the world and even in this country. He's responded by saying that the real problem is Islamophobia. They are not the same things. That's just not what's happening like it's happening here in the United States. And in Florida, obviously, we have areas that are targeted. So I don't think those are the same. And I think that, you know, there's one vein of hate that is predominating over all others right now, and that is anti-Semitism. And yes, it's way worse from what we've seen since October 7 than I think even people who were very concerned about this issue would have thought before. I think a lot of people have been surprised at that. But even with that being said, the percentage of crimes against people based on identity is always, Jews always lead that overwhelmingly in America and around the world. But in America, not even close. There's not even a close second. That's just the fact on it. Yes. I've already said yes. Yeah, I've already said that. I said that the other night when it came out. It's look, you're innocent until proven guilty. There's clearly things that are lodged against people that aren't necessarily true. But I think when you have an investigation of crimes of this magnitude, I think that the mission has to come first. It is not helpful to the mission to have this hanging over his head. And so I've said he should step aside. Paul Renner, the Speaker, Kathleen, Senate President. I think most people acknowledge that it's just an untenable situation when you have things like that there, and so we'll see what ends up happening. but I don't know that you have any real standing with that hanging over you. Yep. Well, this budget has $450 million for reducing some of the taxes and fees on people's insurance bills. That will go up to home values of $750,000. We're trying to make it for middle and low-income people. We are also doing the My Safe Florida Home program. So between what the legislature just did and what we'll do, that'll be ended up being $290 million, where you get grants, make improvements to your home, and then get lower rates. And then just the overall picture, since the reforms were done in about a year ago and kicked in this year, we now have 7 companies that have either entered the market or that are looking to enter the market. We got through a hurricane season we did have one major, but it hit in a very rural part of the state. So the damage that did cumulatively was nothing compared to Ian in terms of the scope of it, just because Ian went over millions and millions of people. The one in Idalia, that went over a relatively small number. Now, it did do serious damage, but the scale of it financially was not. So in terms of the insurance companies, people thought Ian that they may just go out of business. I mean, it was a really, really big thing. This is something that I think people say that the state got through this season pretty good. So I think you're going to see more capital come online, but ultimately this is not something that's run by the government. I mean, it's private companies that have to want to come into the market and have confidence that they're in an environment that makes sense. We have done a lot to increase that. We don't have the runaway lawsuits anymore like we used to, which drove up premiums a lot. So it's feasible to come in and offer premiums that are competitive and yet still make money. And that's the thing. These are private companies. They have to make money. So I think that those reforms have been good. This will be good for additional relief. And then if there's other things that we can do with the legislature in the upcoming session, of course, we would be ready, willing, and able to do that. All right, everybody. Thank you. God bless. We'll